coming back. Ciara had spent the time Nick gave her doing exactly what she asked him for, sitting with it. Really sitting, not using the space to build a case against him or rehearse her exit. She thought about her mother, about patterns passed down without permission, about the difference between bracing because something was genuinely wrong and bracing out of old habit. Nick had been honest when she pushed. He'd given her room when she asked for it. He hadn't tried to fast forward past the hard part. Those weren't nothing. I thought about not coming, she told him when they sat down, because she decided this conversation would be the honest one, no softening. Old me probably wouldn't have. I would have convinced myself it was too complicated and disappeared before you could disappoint me. What made you come back? He asked. Not defensive, just genuinely asking. I realized I was doing the same thing I always do, trying to protect myself from something that hadn't even happened yet, and it was costing me something real to do it. She looked at him carefully. You should have told me about the marriage yourself. You know that. I know, I'm sorry. I genuinely didn't know how to bring it up without it changing how you saw me before you knew me. It changed how I see you now that I've found out from someone else. I know that too. The honesty of it settled between them, uncomfortable and necessary at the same time. So here's what I want, Ciara said, quieter. I'm not running. I just needed to know I was choosing this because I wanted it, not because I was afraid of losing it. If we do this, I need you to stop deciding what I can and can't handle. Tell me the things that matter. Let me decide what they mean. That's fair, Nick said. I can do that. She reached across the table and took his hand then, first before he could, because that was the point. She was choosing forward, not being pulled into it. Then let's try, she said. Nick turned his hand over under hers, holding properly. That's the only way I'd want you to choose it, he said. What we actually are. Jazz had been thinking about what she wanted to say for 3 days, and she still didn't have a clean version of it. In the end, she just said it the way it actually was, which felt right. I want to do this for real, she told Justin, both of them on her couch, with the TV off for once, because she hadn't wanted anything running in the background when she said this. I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop since the first date, waiting for you to decide I was too much, or not enough, or that the real version of me was a disappointment compared to the performing one. She paused. I want to stop waiting. I want to actually be here instead of half out the door in case I need to leave first. Justin looked at her for a moment, steady the way he always was. Jazz, he said. I'm already here. I've been here. I know, she met his eyes. That's why I'm saying it, because you kept showing up and I kept making you prove it over and over again without ever telling you that's what I was doing. That's not fair to you, and it's not who I want to be. You don't have to apologize for being careful, he said. I'm not apologizing. I'm just... She stopped and for once didn't reach for the joke. I'm telling you, so we both know where I am, and you can decide if that's something you want to be patient with. I already decided that, Justin said simply. But yeah, for the record, I want to do this for real too. Jazz let out a slow breath, and for a moment she looked like someone who had been holding a weight she'd forgotten was optional. Okay, she said. Okay, he said. They stayed on the couch until it was late, talking about nothing consequential, easy and unhurried, two people who had quietly agreed to stop testing each other and start building something instead. What good actually feels like. Ava had been on enough first dates to know how they were supposed to go. There was a version of herself she used to bring to them, more curated, more careful, one eye on how things were landing. She'd done it with Aiden, she'd done it with Jaden, she'd done some version of it with most people before them. Dinner with Corey didn't feel like that. They'd talked for 2.5 hours without her once checking how the conversation was landing. He'd ordered wrong, gotten something he didn't realize came with olives, spent 5 minutes picking them out while she laughed at him, and she hadn't felt the second-hand embarrassment she used to feel in those moments, the faint pull towards someone more seamless, more polished. She just laughed, easy, real. Walking back to her car afterward, she became aware of something she couldn't immediately name, a specific reluctance, not a desperate one, not the clinging kind, just the simple, quiet fact that she didn't want the night to end yet. She stopped walking for a moment, letting herself notice it. She hadn't felt that about an evening in a long time, not with Aidan, if she was being honest with herself. Those nights had been exciting, like a good TV show, but there'd always been a subtle relief when they wrapped up, and she could go home and be alone again. Not exhausting exactly, just tiring, in a way she'd been calling excitement because it was easier. This was different. It wasn't the butterflies she'd always been told to chase, that fizzy, urgent, slightly anxious feeling she'd mistaken for connection before. It was steadier than that, quieter than that, something that felt less like a performance and more like a room she'd walked into and immediately felt comfortable in without needing to rearrange anything. This is what good actually feels like, she said to herself just under her breath, and smiled at nothing in particular, alone on the sidewalk in the evening air. Not safe, not just safe, good.
I need you to leave. Brianna had spent a week deciding whether this was anger or clarity. By the time Jay walked in and saw the bag by the door, she knew the answer. I'm not doing this because I hate you, she said before he could say anything. I'm not even doing it because I can't forgive you. I don't know yet whether I can, but I can't figure that out while we're living in the same space, sleeping in the same bed, going through the same routines like the shape of things hasn't completely changed. Jay looked at the bag. He looked at her. You want me to leave? I need you to give me room. Real room, not the kind where you're in the guest room and I can still hear you breathing. She'd thought about how to say this for days, and it still came out feeling incomplete because nothing about it was complete yet. I spent weeks watching you for clues because I already knew something was wrong and didn't trust myself to say it. I don't want to spend the next months watching you try to fix something inside the same walls where it happened. I need to be alone in this space so I can figure out what I actually think and feel without navigating you at the same time. And then what? Jay asked quietly. There was grief in it, genuine grief, which she'd expected but which still landed like something physical. After you leave and you figure out what you feel, what happens then? I don't know, Brianna said, and she meant it, the not knowing instead of reaching for a neat answer to make the moment easier. Maybe we figure it out, maybe we don't. I just know I can't figure it out like this. He nodded slowly, the way people nod when they understand something they didn't want to understand. He picked up his bag. I'm sorry, Brianna. I mean that. I know you do. That's not the part I'm working through right now. The door closed behind him, and the apartment went quiet in a way it hadn't been in years. Brianna stood in the middle of her living room and waited for the collapse she'd been bracing for since the night he'd said the rest of the sentence. It didn't come. What came instead was something quieter, something almost close to stillness. She was still standing, she was still breathing, she was still herself, not the self that had been watching and waiting and collecting, but something underneath all of that, something that had been there the whole time, waiting for enough space to take a full breath. She didn't know what came next, she just knew it was she who would decide it, and for right now, that was enough.
Where we are now. It was Brianna's idea to have them over. That was new. She'd been the one being looked after, the one they'd shown up for on short notice, the one who'd finally let herself be seen carrying something heavy. And now, a few days after asking Jay to leave, she was the one who texted the group and said, "Come over, 7 o'clock, bring food." "You look different," Jazz said, not long after they'd settled in, with the particular directness she'd stopped trying to disguise. "I don't know how to explain it, just different." "I feel different," Brianna said, and that was as much as she could say about it, because it was still too new to have proper words around it. Ava had met Corey for dinner 2 nights ago, and the way she'd talked about it now was calm in a way none of them had ever heard from her about someone she was seeing. Not the careful calm of someone managing their feelings, but the easy calm of someone who'd stopped needing to. Ciara had gone back to Nick. She told them about the coffee shop, about reaching for his hand first, and Jazz raised her mug like a toast. "That's character development," she said, and Ciara rolled her eyes but didn't disagree. Jazz told them about her and Justin making things official. No long story, just the facts, offered without fanfare. Ava said, quietly, "We all actually did it, didn't we? We all actually moved." The room held that for a moment. Nobody narrated the whole arc of the year back at each other. Nobody needed to. The 4 of them had been in it together, even when they were in separate rooms, separate restaurants, separate cars sitting in driveways working through something they didn't have words for yet. "I think I'm going to be okay," Brianna said, at some point later in the night, soft and without any performance in it. Not a plea for reassurance, just a thing she'd arrived at and wanted to say out loud in a room full of people who would understand what it had cost to get there. Nobody rushed to tell her she was going to be better than okay. Nobody wrapped it up with a bow it didn't need. Ava just looked at her, steady and warm, and said, "We know." None of them were ready to go home. Not because the night was perfect, or because any of their lives had neatly resolved themselves, but because the company was exactly right. 4 women, a little different than they'd been a year ago, a little more themselves, a little less afraid of what that meant. They stayed until it was late, and nobody apologized for it.